Babi Yar. In this place are the remains of more than 33,000 people, including men, women, the elderly and children, who in September 1941 and after the entry of German forces in Kiev, would be shot by the Einsatzgruppen or squads of death of the SS, giving rise to one of the most horrendous massacres of the 20th century. In command of these infamous squadrons was SS Colonel Paul Blobel, a decorated veteran of the Great War who had lost all humanity and together with his men committed many war crimes throughout Ukraine that earned him the nickname of the Demon of Babi Yar. Paul Blobel, born in Potsdam in 1894, was always a very strange and quiet young man. The beginning of the Great War in 1914 sent him into a frenzy of horrible scenes of destruction and death, something that affected his disturbed mind. Even so, Blobel distinguished himself as a good combatant. Fighting with the stormtroopers, he would earn the Iron Cross First Class. After the First World Conflict, Blobel continued his architecture studies and graduated in 1921. 3 years later, he opened his own company. Everything was going well for Blobel, but the beginning of the Great Financial Depression that devastated the world in the 1920s, greatly affecting Germany, forced him to close his company. Paul Blobel saw the rise of National Socialism as a way to take refuge with people who shared his worldview. He joined the Nazi Party and the SS in 1931, and 2 years later when Hitler took power he gained a job as a police officer in Dusseldorf, but he did not stay in this job for long. Nazi Germany's intelligence service recruited him. The Intelligence Service, or SD, was another Gestapo organization which was under the command of Reinhard Heydrich, the man with the iron heart. The SD sought to expand its ranks with men like Blobel, who began to rise rapidly. In 1938, Blobel was a squad leader in the city of Dusseldorf, where he was responsible, like many other officers of the security service, for inciting the population to destroy and vandalize Jewish businesses in collaboration with the SS, SA, and Hitlerjugend. This an event that was later called Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, was the first step towards the radicalization of anti-Semitism in Germany. With the beginning of World War II, Himmler, the top leader of the SS, decided to unite all of Germany's police and secret services into the Central Security Office. Organizations such as the SD, the Gestapo, or the police would begin to collaborate closely. They would be in charge of coordinating and perpetrating terrible atrocities in Eastern Europe. In March 1941, and 2 months before the start of Operation Barbarossa, the Einsatzgruppen joined the Reich Security Office. The job of these infamous troops was the killing of people considered racial or political enemies who were in the rear of the German battlefront in the Soviet Union. This is how 4 Einsatzgruppen were formed: Einsatzgruppen A, that accompanied Army Group North and committed horrible crimes in the Baltic states; Einsatzgruppen B, that followed the troops of Army Group Center towards Moscow and on its way brought destruction to the Soviet Poland and Belarus. The most infamous, the Einsatzgruppen C, which worked in Ukraine, and lastly Einsatzgruppen D, which accompanied Manstein's 11th Army through the Crimea. Paul Blobel was in command of a Sonderkommando of Einsatzgruppen C. Here in August 1941, he ordered the execution of 5,000 people, mostly Jews and members of the Communist Party. The methods of these commands ranged from the meticulous selection of people to be executed and the collective massacres of thousands of people. Initially, the objective of these units was men between 16 and 45 years old, accused of being partisans, but later the measures became more radical and included women, the elderly, and children. Blobel did not hesitate to further radicalize the massacres when in Leopolis his men perpetrated horrible acts with the help of the local population and support of Wehrmacht units that killed nearly 9,000 people. But without a doubt what happened in Kiev was worse than what was said a few moments ago. Almost at the end of September 1941, the Wehrmacht ended the siege of the Ukrainian capital. More than 650,000 prisoners were taken, and during their retreat the NKVD buried mines and explosives in various areas of the city. One of these exploded at the headquarters of Army Group South, killing many German officers and soldiers. The German authorities then decided as punishment to shoot the Jews of Kiev. To carry out this terrible massacre, the group of Paul Blobel was chosen, who had earned a reputation as a ruthless and efficient Einsatzgruppen officer. On September 26, the Germans published a proclamation ordering Jews to gather in the city square to be relocated. Blobel and his men expected to gather between 5,000 and 6,000 people, but were surprised when the crowd reached 33,000, so they received help from collaborators and elements of the German military police who took the civilians to the Babi Yar ravine in the outskirts of Kiev. In the ravine, the civilians were forced to take off their clothes, stand on the edge, and their Blobel's men began to shoot. The massacre that lasted 2 days killed 33,700 people. This was one of the largest mass murders of World War II, and only 29 people are known to have survived. One of them was Dina Pronikieva. Her testimony was very helpful when the authorities tried those responsible for what happened in Babi Yar. I saw with my own eyes how the Germans and their allies took the people in groups of 10. I could hear the panicked scream of women with each gunshot and the tender voices of frightened children shouting, "Mom, Mom." As of January 1942, Blobel's men had killed more than 60,000 people throughout occupied Ukraine. But Blobel's alcoholism problems would lead to him being dismissed from his position 2 months later and sent to Berlin, where he was transferred to the SS Officer Reserve. But this would not be the end for this character. Between July 1942 and September 1944, Heinrich Müller, head of the Gestapo, puts Blobel in command of Operation Action 1005, which sought to eliminate evidence of the atrocities committed by the Einsatzgruppen by destroying mass graves and incinerating all evidence. Blobel then began eliminating incriminating evidence in Kelmo, and as the Red Army approached Kiev, he attempted to do the same in Babi Yar, although he was unable to complete his work. With the end of the Second World War, the victorious powers prosecuted all the officers of the Einsatzgruppen. One of them, logically, was Paul Blobel, who faced justice in 1947 and denied the number of victims for which he was accused. Blobel denied that his troops killed more than 60,000 people. He said it was only 15,000. The accused also defended himself by saying that all those shots had been partisans and that according to international law he had not committed any crime. None of this helped. Paul Blobel had killed more than 60,000 people and perhaps thousands more. The jury sentenced him to hanging. Not even in his final moments did Blobel show any sign of repentance. According to witnesses, he left with a smile. His last words were, "Everything I have done, I did as a soldier who obeyed orders. I have not committed any crime. I will be forgiven by God and history. May God have mercy on those who murder me." On June 7, 1951, the life of the demon of Babi Yar came to an end. Thanks for watching the video. If you are interested in World War II content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I upload new videos every week.